You guys want to talk about authoritarianism? You want to talk about fascism? You want to talk about all that stuff? How about this story from CTV News? Man charged with assault at Montreal quarantine. Woman says she felt helpless. You don't get enough of understanding from this headline. Let me tell you what happened. A woman heard they were going to start instituting mandatory quarantines in Canada. She decided, I'll go back to Canada now before they do this. Took a COVID test. When she arrived, they said that was the wrong COVID test. So they took her to an undisclosed location, a hotel. They told her she wasn't allowed to tell anyone where she was, where the hotel was, or what was going on. And while she was there, a man sexually assaulted her. This is authoritarianism. This is what we have to worry about with these passports, with these lockdowns. Yeah. I watched a video. It was from Rebel News. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I saw this video on Twitter. And it's one of their reporters is walking down the street filming. Probably my assumption is he was filming like this is what the lockdown looks like. You know, I'm out here showing the people. Right. And the cops gave him a fine and said, we don't care. They wrote him a ticket. Curfew for an adult man walking down an empty street. Now, listen, I mentioned that that's not the worst of it. This story was sent to me. And at first I was like, what is this? A guy's being charged with sexual assault at Montreal quarantine hotel. Woman says she felt helpless. What is this? And she said she felt helpless at a hotel where she didn't expect to end up and where she was told she wasn't allowed to disclose her location. Quote, they didn't tell you where they were taking you, which is unacceptable. They gave us a set of rules. Can't post on social media. Can't disclose location. Federal health officials told CTV they're aware of the incident and taking it very seriously. The assault. That's what they care about. To the rest of these people, it's normal that this woman was flying back to her home and was apprehended by the authorities for breaking no crime, told she couldn't tell anyone what was going on. She couldn't report anything on social media. She couldn't give her location out. They brought her to an undisclosed location where she was assaulted. This is insane. They're literally taking people who have broken no laws, right, locking them up.
It's also, and the problem with all of this too is, it's the case in Canada, I'm sure. It's certainly the case in the United States. When you empower government to do things, right? We've seen this with the Patriot Act. We've seen this with lots and lots of things. When you allow governments to have lots and lots of power and lots of authority that is relatively unchecked against everyday life and against everyday civilians, they don't give them back quickly, right? The coronavirus cases are down like 77%, I think, in the last couple of weeks, right? And despite that, has your life changed? Has anyone's life changed?
To be fair, we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. You guys, I live in DC, and so it's a whole other universe. Nothing's changed. People are wearing 2 masks instead of 1 now. That's the only thing that's changed.
Do you still have all the razor wire and the?
Yes, yeah. I went for a run the other day because I used to run, and I'd run up to the Cap because I live pretty close there. No, I mean it's as if we're living it's like East-West Germany. It's insane. But what happens when government gets these powers is that a bureaucracy that is empowered to make these sorts of decisions is always going to think they are going to make the right decision. They are not going to give you the power and authority back. And it has been, I think, to me, really incredible, despite the fact that the cases are falling and deaths are falling, life isn't actually returning to normal in all of the places where all of these lockdown restrictions have been put in place. And Canada obviously is a nightmarish example of this, but we're not that far from this kind of stuff.
No, we're not. And what is Fauci saying? Look, if you go get the vaccine, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
You'll still have to wear 2 masks. You won't be able to go to the movies or go out to eat. So go get it anyway. And people are actually not questioning why would they do it?
Who's going to do that? And here's the thing, too. Like, listen, if all he would say, it blows my mind because all he would have to do, absent this power conversation, if he's someone who just wants to see people get the vaccine, you know what you do? You tell them how great the vaccine is.
Yep.
We have managed in the span of a very limited amount of time to come up with a revolutionary virus because of the power of American R&D and research that can
revolutionary vaccine
that can stop and shut down a pandemic that has brought the world to its knees. Go get it. It's safe. We've tested it a gazillion times. Go get the vaccine.
Well, the long-term tests haven't been done.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. Another thing I wanted to bring up is before, forcing the strictest lockdowns, the Canadian government also disarmed a large public of the Canadian citizenry, and we had politicians like Justin Trudeau that was in October of 2020 telling its citizenry, don't believe the conspiracy theories that there's going to be government quarantine camps. It's a conspiracy theory. Don't believe it. It's not going to happen. And here we are today when you enter Canada.
It's not a camp. It's a Sheraton hotel.
Oh, okay. That's better.
I have to imagine.
With, of course, corrupt security guards that do
You can't
unspeakable
tell
things
anyone
to
where
you.
you're going.
And this is just it's like the frog boiling.
Yeah.
That's essentially what's happening here. And there's still a lot of legitimate questions surrounding the vaccine that I do believe should be asked, from my own personal opinion.
Yeah, you would think that with like a kind of like a propaganda campaign in favor of the vaccine, that people like Dr. Fauci would be super rah-rah about it. I don't
But Trump
understand
did
why
it.
he's not.
Trump did it, and they don't like
That's
Trump.
it. That's bottom
I mean,
line.
look, we mentioned this before. All these stories were coming out saying like, oh, boogeyman vaccine. A doctor took a vaccine, 2 weeks later was dead.
Yeah.
And then I read the stories like, wow, what happened? And it was like he had a stroke. And I'm like,
Oh.
2 weeks later he had a stroke. Okay, come on. I'm concerned about the speediness at which this vaccine was put out there, but I'm worried that there are the same nasty, unethical journalists who are like, it's Trump's vaccine though.
Yeah.
Let's rag on it. Let's. I mean, and the politicians certainly like the power. So I wonder why it is Fauci is saying these things.
Maybe he's being honest. Maybe it really isn't that effectual, or he doesn't know.
Well, there's been
Yeah,
many...
maybe they did it because they were scared and people needed hope. So the vaccine is worthless. Is that what Fauci is saying?
Well, again, this is rushed. This is still experimental, and there have been some findings saying that if you do get the vaccine, you could still spread the sickness. There's been studies saying that. There's been experts saying that. I think even you have to look this up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think even Fauci said this himself. So when we're looking at, I don't think this is Trump's vaccine. This is Pfizer's vaccine. This is Moderna's
It was Warp
vaccines. This
Speed.
is Johnson & Johnson's vaccine.
And it was Operation Warp Speed that Trump streamlined the process to ramp everything through really, really quickly and provide massive funding for all this and guaranteed contracts.
Sure. But when people look at it now, they don't see Trump. That's the point that I'm making here. Yes, Trump played a key initiative in pushing this vaccine, but the questions about its efficacy and its safety, those still are kind of questions that are being asked, and we'll see.
Yeah, and Dr. Fauci is the one who's basically undermining confidence in it.
Yeah.
And that to me is insane.
Yeah,
It's
and
absolutely
like
insane.
to me again, like at the risk of being a little bit black helicopters on this stuff, I think part of it is if he were to go out and say that it is fully effective and fully safe and everyone should get out and do it, then people would probably stop looking to the CDC for advice, right? Like if you look at all of the different things that the CDC recommends you do, most of us ignore them on a day-to-day basis, right? How many people truly go and they're like, well, I really like the taste of medium rare steak, but the CDC says you have to cook it to at least medium. No one. People don't do
they
that.
really say that?
Yes, that's one of the
Monsters.
recommendations.
What?
And I think
Monsters.
it's like 1 or 2 drinks is the maximum. Like they have all of the they have
break.
a litany of very, very silly rules that no one actually follows.
This is for
And I
COVID?
think for anything.
They're
for
telling
anything.
people to ruin their steaks.
Yes,
know, right?
exactly.
Listen, who do we have to
Travesty.
impeach? Who do we impeach?
Thank you.
I refuse.
Thank you.
The
But here's the
CDC.
thing. Right now, people are. It's in a lot of ways, it's like the weathermen when they predict storms. Right. As long as they keep telling you that a storm is coming, you're gonna be glued. You're gonna pay attention. I'm gonna go to the Weather Channel and see if we're gonna get 6 inches or 8 inches or 12 inches, or is it gonna be worse? Is it gonna be nothing? But if you keep saying something bad and scary is coming around the corner, people will keep tuning in.
I mean, look,
and in his case, people will keep empowering him and the rest of the agents of the state to be able to say, "Oh, sorry, you can't do the things we don't like you doing."
It's an addiction.
Yeah.
You've got people who have power, and they've found a way to use government to gain more power, be it money, shutting down all our competition and allowing only us to remain open. We're not going to oppose that. And so unless there is a principled individual to snap their fingers and say, stop this, which there isn't,
Right.
why would anyone give this up? Now, listen, the people running the big box stores and the big, massive, online stores who are allowed to stay open and are making all this money and making billions and billions of dollars, they're going to be like, well, look, it's not us, it's the pandemic, so we're not going to get involved.
I think Elon was pretty good about being like, this thing's ridiculous. I'm not shutting my factory down. I'm
Right.
leaving California. Come with
But
me if
he
you
needs
want.
people driving their cars.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to impugn the honor of Elon, but if people are staying home, they're not buying cars, they're not driving cars.
Good point.
So it's good for Tesla and it's good for their bottom line when people are out and about. You look at Amazon, it's the inverse.
Yeah.
They need you in your home waiting for that delivery. So why would they resist in any capacity? These politicians are also thinking, I got a guaranteed salary and everyone is sitting there terrified and will do whatever I say. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
If people lose their livelihoods, who's going to buy Teslas? So that's another thing to really consider
point.
here. As well as, on the other hand, we did had a John Hopkins doctor recently come out in the Wall Street Journal op-ed and write that COVID's going to be over by April.
Yeah.
We had the Independent reporting that there has been no influenza cases in the United Kingdom all year. There also has been a huge influenza drop in the United States. And according to English health officials and the Deputy Chief Medical Officer of the United Kingdom, he is even saying, as of 2 days ago, that face masks may not even be necessary by the summer. So this is also happening as well as the same time as we're discussing Dr. Fauci's, darker predictions and Dr. Fauci's opposite viewpoint of what all these other medical professionals are saying in other countries.
Did you just say there was no influenza in the United Kingdom?
Yes, there
Zero.
was no according to the British, the UK health records, there was 0 cases of influenza of flu in the United Kingdom this year, 2021.
Let's talk about this. Not a single case of flu detected by Public Health England this year as COVID restrictions suppress virus. Experts say decline in infections could justify continued use of hand sanitizer and masks following coronavirus pandemic. That's really amazing that COVID was skyrocketing while the flu was disappearing.
Yeah, you trying to fact check me there, Ian?
I want to just point this out.
Good, I
that
like that. I like that.
It's
We should be
possible
fact checking.
that influenza is present, but they're not classifying it as an influenza infection. Instead, they're saying it's a COVID infection.
Well, we don't know that.
No, we
don't
don't.
know
I
that
would like
for
to investigate
sure.
that. I would
but it does raise an important question. Similar numbers have gone down in the United States. So there's another article that I was just reading a couple of days ago about influenza almost totally wiped out in the United States. There still have been some documented cases. Now again, we don't have the evidence. It's a stretch to go there, but some people are going there. But again, this is something to think about. This is something to add to our calculations when we're looking at the sphere of our current modern day.
It's simple. The flu, when people were staying home, couldn't spread. But COVID could.
But it wouldn't mean that you wouldn't
it could.
get it. Like, it would slow the spread, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
It's interesting. What I had heard in terms of influenza coming to the United States is that there's essentially, and listen, someone's got to fact check me on this, but I think the argument is that influenza, the annual influenza, tends to come from Central and South America.
Yep.
And that it cultivates there for whatever reason, right? And don't forget, the seasonal flu we get now is just a dilapidated version of the 1918 Spanish flu. Mm-hmm. And it never quite went away, and that's kind of how they assume the coronavirus is going to be too. Right. And so every year we get like a slight variance on a new strain, and for whatever reason, my understanding is that I don't know where it starts, but it tends to come to the United States from Central and South America. Since there's a lot less tourism, there's a lot less immigration. I think the thinking is that it hasn't actually kept with its normal course.
So you're saying the migrant caravans are putting it at risk, and we have to lock the borders down.
Maybe.
There's one argument, right?
I'm only half kidding. I mean, that's true too. Like if the flu is really coming from a lot of these people, then border security would help prevent a lot of these diseases.
I do think I think it's mostly tourists, though. I think is how it tends to work. But also, interesting point you made earlier is about this Wall Street Journal op-ed, which I read the other day and I found fascinating. And basically, the crux of his argument is we're not taking into account how many people already have a natural resistance to the vaccine because there have been so many asymptomatic cases. I think his estimates are that there have been between 5 and 6 times as many people who have been infected by coronavirus than our numbers have. Not for any malicious reason, but just because a lot of people were asymptomatic, had it, never got tested, never even thought to get tested.
Never even knew they had it.
Yeah, of course, and never knew that they had it. And so when we talk about herd immunity, one of the biggest factors is that in the case of this op-ed, the argument is that one of the biggest things we're not talking about is how many people have natural immunity. And so if instead of 1 million or a couple of million, it's a lot higher than that, then you don't actually have to vaccinate as many people until you get to a point where the numbers continue to fall and continue to fall to a point where they're almost vanishing.
Yeah. Most of them, by the way, have healthy immune systems, have good vitamin D levels. Again, something that we should be talking about more. There was also another UK study that talked about how the vaccine won't eliminate the virus risk. I think it was also in the Wall Street Journal that reported this as well, which was kind of interesting. Vaccine won't eliminate virus risk, I think was the title. I don't know if you're able to find it or pull it up there. But again, there's so many different things being thrown at us that we have to understand all of this is extremely complex. A lot of the experts contradict themselves. A lot of the mainstream media reports sensationalize it, make it as hyperbolic, make it as fearful as they can for you. And a lot of the real legitimate things about your health, your immune system, sleep, stress, stress, proper diet, exercise, vitamin D, sun. A lot of that gets missed.
Yeah.
And again, not a medical doctor, not a medical professional, not telling you how to live your life, not telling you what to do, but I'm just saying that this whole conversation around this from the very beginning has been toxic, has been polluted, and has been politicized so that people take advantage of it for their own personal benefit. And sadly, our politicians did that to us.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.